Hey guys, what's up? It's your boy Juice back here with Mom's Basement Games, bringing you some hot, steamy Commander deck tech action. Wow, it has been a while since I have done one of these. I'm really excited. I'm sure lots of you have missed seeing these terrific deck techs that I have done like all 30 times. But without further ado, how about we just hop right into this and see what cool sauce I've brought to the table for us today. So, Zaxara, the Exemplary. This is one of the additional commanders that is going to be coming out with the new 2020 set of commander products. It's in the Sultai deck, of course, and like I said, it's one of the other commanders. It isn't the main commander featured in the deck, but it's one of the other cards you can kind of swap out, and there's like some minor synergies for it in the deck, but it's not really the prime focus of the deck it comes with. It's just kind of there as a cool tool, but we're going to take it today and actually turn it into a real deck. So what does Zaxara actually do? It is a 2/3 Death Toucher. It costs Sultai and a extra generic mana, and then you can tap it to add 2 mana of any one color, and whenever you cast a spell with X in its mana cost, its ability is going to allow you to create a 0/0 green Hydra creature token, and you get to put X +1/+1 counters on it. X, of course, being what that X cost was in that spell with X in its casting cost. So, how are we going to break this, you might ask? Well, Hydra Central, everybody. Got to get all the Hydras we can possibly cram into this deck, especially all the ones with X costs. Here's a nice little spread I've given you so far. All these Hydras are going to be in the list that is going to be supplied below this video. So if you're looking to get more down and dirty with the Hydras that I've personally selected, feel free to check out that list. You'll get all the information that you're kind of needing there. I've chosen some of these Hydras for very specific reasons, and other Hydras just because they're cool Hydras with X costs. And I kind of want to leave this on the open end a little bit, just because there are going to be some awesome new Hydras coming out in Ikora and in these commander decks. And I'm actually not including any cards whatsoever from the new set or from these new commander decks in this video, just because the spoiler season isn't even done yet. I'm making this video super early, and I think it's going to be fun to experiment with those cards once we actually know what they're all going to be, and they're actually out, and we're seeing how they're playing in the meta and stuff like that. So I didn't want to jump to too many conclusions ahead of time, but it is totally possible that I can go back and revisit this for us and kind of get all that sorted out. If you guys are actually interested in some more useful pieces of tech that we can use inside of this deck. If we're looking at some Hydras, though, that I'm definitely never taking out of this list, they're in here forever. You can't move them. Hydroid Krasis, Cloning, Hydra, and Gargos are all going to be super easy includes. They'll have sick abilities for this deck. But without further ado, I want to get into some more of the sauce. The Hydras are kind of like, they're the backbone creature base of this deck, and they're going to make us some cool tokens and potentially give us just trample wins straight up. But you know the juice, and the juice likes the sauce, because the sauce is the boss, and that's where we're going next. So let's look at some of these other X creatures that I've put in the deck. There's actually not too many of them, and you might be wondering what this deck list is even about then. But we're going to get there. Just hold on a little bit. I promise we will get there. But we have here our Stonecoil Serpent on our right. X cost, it has reach, trample, and protection for multicolored. It's just bonkers. So many people run multicolored commanders and multicolored cards in their commander decks already. We're going to see an even bigger spike in people running these cards after these new commander products are released and after this new set is released, which is focused almost all on shards. It's going to be nuts. Stonecoil Serpent, I'm calling it right now. If you're playing this deck, play that card. It's not very expensive. You can cast it for whatever you want. It synergizes with the deck, and it's good protection. All right, that's my little like soapbox moment. That's over now. So let's move on to Walking Ballista over here. Walking Ballista, of course, everybody knows what Walking Ballista does, but just in case you don't, it enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it, and you can just remove a counter, ping someone for 1, or pump 4 mana into it to put an additional counter on it. We're going to be doing some janky stuff with this Walking Ballista later. But until we get there, let's move on to some of our other X-cost creatures. We have Gadwick the Wizened. Super, super, super cool. It is literally just a Blue Suns on a creature that doesn't reshuffle. Yeah, that's pretty much it. But no, it is a super cool card, and it also has the additional ability of whenever you cast a blue spell, you get to tap a non-land permanent that an opponent controls. This paired with instants and sorceries that we're going to be playing in the deck as well. One of your draw spells can actually turn into something to tap down your opponent's biggest threat. It's a cool hand refill that also gets you some synergy in the deck later on down the road. I thought it was worth the include. I think it's on theme pretty much, and it has some extra purposes. We also have Altered Ego in the deck as a clone that can make itself grow bigger and give us Hydra tokens. It can't be countered. You get a clone whenever you want. It's kind of like our Phyrexian Metamorph in the deck. But we're running X counters. It's a little different, I know. But it's our special little version for this deck. So that's just why I chose to add that one in here. But moving on, let's get into some draw. How are we going to be drawing? Because one of the purposes of this deck is aiming to draw a lot, draw really fast, and keep drawing well. So we have over here all of our spells that are going to trigger when something enters the battlefield. So Kiora says whenever something power 4 or greater enters the battlefield, you draw a card. Elemental Bond is whenever something power 3 or greater enters the battlefield, you draw a card. And Guardian Project is when a non-token creature whose name you don't already have in play enters, you get to draw a card as well. So these are all ETB draws, varying effects, but it's just going to let us get rewarded for continuing to play our creatures throughout the game. Kiora also has the other cool effect of being able to untap our permanents, namely our commander that taps for 2 mana. So Kiora actually has some super sick synergies in this deck. She fits in here really well. You're going to notice she's giving you like a pretty decent buyback if she stays in play and you also have the commander in play. And then moving on, we're actually going to have our pay-to-draw effects. We're running Rhystic Study and Mystical War. We want to get a little bit of that competitive edge in this deck just to kickstart ourselves off at the start, make sure that we are constantly refilling our hands and making sure we can find combo pieces that are eventually going to win us the game. Which, speaking of which, we have all of our draw X spells over here. The ones I've chosen for this deck, I've chosen specifically. There are several other draw, I think 3 other draw X spells you can use that are pretty decent too. Those are all at sorcery speed though, and I don't really like that, or they're a little bit... There's some like additive clauses on other ones too, I guess, that I wasn't thinking about, but those are also aren't added into this list for a reason. Blue Suns and Pull from Tomorrow are insanely good because they're both instant speed interaction. You can do it on somebody's end step in response to somebody tapping out. Whatever situation you need to draw these cards in, even on your main phase, you can still do it, of course, and that's kind of the versatility I like this deck to have. I want to be able to hold up our mana when we need to and be able to cast the spells we need, get the synergy we need, and then go about our day and finish off whenever we need to. It also gives us the ability to combo out with certain things at instant speed, which can save your butt with people trying to disrupt your interaction. And then, of course, Finale of Revelation is just super bonkers. You also get to untap 5 lands, and you have no maximum hand size for the rest of the game. So even if you're just doing it for 10, you literally just get a free Reliquary Tower effect for the rest of the game. I think that's pretty decent enough to supplement it over some of the other sorcery pay to draw X spells. It just has like that little bit of extra oomph behind it, and yes, you do have to exile it after, but there's not a lot of cards in this deck that are going to be interacting with our graveyard, so that clause really does not affect our playstyle here. Moving on next, we're going to see how are we getting all this mana? How are we going to ramp in this deck? Here's some cute little ramp pieces I've had. Astral Cornucopia, it's a triple X spell. We're going to get Hydras off of casting Astral Cornucopia. That's kind of the only synergy there. It's cute. It's super cute. But I couldn't build this deck and not throw it into the list. Other than that, we just have some casual ramp here. Our Cultivate, Kodama's Reeds, Burgeoning, Birds, Incubation Druid. Just, central ramp and Mana Dork pieces that you'll find in almost any green deck. Incubation Druid and Birds of Paradise is specifically in, decks that have more colors in it. We're playing Sultai, 3 colors. We want both of those. We also have our doubling cube up here because we potentially can get to the point where we're floating so much mana and we want to dump enough mana in our X spell to get somewhere that the doubling cube can kind of just save our butt. It's a little cute. It doesn't have like an insane purpose in the deck except for just a little bit of added synergy. Past that, though, we're going to move on here to some other just kind of cool spells that go in this deck. What are some things, they're going to accelerate us, put us on our game plan, and just interact with the board a little bit. Might not be the best cards, but they're going to be fun to play. Continent Send for our X counter spell. Counter spell unless its controller pays X and scry 2. We could put even more, pay X or this gets counter spells in the deck, but frankly, they're not that good. You're going to find that unless you're literally spending your entire turn making sure you hold up enough mana to counter your opponent's things, that a lot of the time you just hold on to those cards, and sometimes you get to go, ha, gotcha, with your opponent's last spell, so I didn't really focus too heavily on those. I'm not trying to play this like a super control-heavy deck. I'm trying to play this as like kind of like a glass cannon-y, fun Hydra combo deck, and that's kind of what we went for with this build. And then, of course, Curse of the Swine, you get to exile X creatures, and for each creature exiled this way, its controller puts a 2/2 green boar creature token onto the battlefield. So you just get to turn all your opponent's things into piggies. Who doesn't like that for X? And then you get a Hydra that's so big it can probably eat all the piggies. Come on. Look at the value. Just read the value, people. It's there. Curse of the Swine. But moving on, infinitely harder in levels of cuteness, we have Nissa, Steward of Elements. Not a very good Planeswalker. It is just like okay. You get a Scry 2 for his +2. At 0s, you get to look at the top card of your library. If it's a land card or a creature card with CMC less than or equal to the number of loyalty counters on her, you can put it onto the battlefield. Pretty much the only good ability on the Planeswalker. And you get an untap for her -6, untap up to 2 target lands you control, and they become 5/5 elemental creatures with flying and haste until end of turn. Sorry, until end of turn, and they are still lands. So yeah, Nissa, there she is. She's cute. Sometimes she'll get you synergy if you dump her in for like an 8-mana walker. We don't want to be hitting her 0 too much though, because hitting Hydras off that feels really bad. But she's in the precon. She's in this deck just to be cute. That's it, guys. I promise. And then moving on to some other last cute cards that we've kind of added here. We have our Mass Manipulation. If we get a ton of mana going, we can just look at our opponents and say, hey, I'm going to steal all of your stuff, and I'm going to get some Hydras as a reward for doing it. And then you make your entire table hate you. So I see no downsides. It's a fun card. You should play it. But then we also have our Hardened Scales, just for a little bit of synergy. It just says if one or more +1/+1 counters will be put on a creature you control, that many +1 are put on it instead. So all of our Hydras are just going to get an extra counter. That's pretty much all the card does. It's a little cute. It'll get us a little bit of synergy. The damage might actually matter in some games you play if it's getting real down to the wire with your trample damage. But regardless, it's a 1-drop. It's something to do, and it will give you synergy throughout the game. And it's such a small inconvenience to your opponents that they'll usually not remove it, and they'll just leave it there. And you get to have it for the game. Hooray. And then, of course, we're going to get to my favorite category, the cards that you should absolutely add if you're looking to really win games and make sure that you are playing your deck to its highest optimizable ability. Some decks, these cards have an insanely high roof, like, oh god, if you want to play this deck, guess what, kid? You got to buy yourself a Lion's Eye Diamond. The most expensive this one gets is you got to buy a Doubling Season. I think they're sitting around like $50 right now. So it's a little bit of a blow, but it could be worse. And of course, Doubling Season says, if an effect would create one or more tokens under your control, it creates twice that many, so we're getting twice our amount of Hydras. And if an effect would put one or more counters on a permanent you control, it puts twice that many on instead. So what this says is, we're getting twice the amount of Hydras with double the counters. So if we cast a Green Sun Zenith for 5, we get 2 10/10 Hydras. Come on. Nuts. You got to play it. You got to play the Doubling Season. Without it, your deck is just kind of going to be met here. And yes, Doubling Season is immediate bait for removal. But having it in the deck and the amount of times that it does land and give you synergy, it can literally close out games in like a turn or two if people leave it on the board. So that should be more than enough reason for you to want to add it. And then it also just gives you a little bit of an extra edge when you're trying to combo off on a turn. Sometimes you don't have a mana or two when you could really need it to get an extra counter or two to deal that final bit of damage or draw those last 2 cards in your deck. And Doubling Season can kind of help you get there. Moving on, though, we're going to move to the Great Henge. And the Great Henge costs X less to cast, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control, with cards like Doubling Season and Unbound Flourishing that we're about to get to, plus all of our mana ramp. It's really easy for us to get a 7/7 Hydra into play pretty quickly with this deck, meaning this card would only cost double green. And of course, when you play it, you can tap it to add double green, so you can just get your value right back if you already have a 7/7 in play. And then you also get 2 life. And whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, you can put a +1/+1 counter on it and draw a card. Even more synergy with the Hydras here. That's part of the reason we want to run all those other Hydras in the deck, get some more synergy off of this. It's just going to keep accumulating. You're getting the draws, you're getting the life gain, you're getting the extra mana. If you play it for 2, it pays for itself immediately and just continues to add on. I believe the card's sitting at like $15 right now, even though it was just printed. And there's a good reason for that. In Commander, this card is just nuts. In big Timmy decks, like the big Timmy deck that we're kind of playing, it's going to be what you want. And then we also have here Unbound Flourishing, and it says whenever you cast a permanent spell with a mana cost that contains X, you double the value of X. So once again, same thing as Doubling Season, but a little bit better for some of our other cards. Because this is going to go, hey, your Blue Sun Zenith and your Green Sun Zenith, well, guess what? Now the X cost in that is doubled. And for both of our finales, well, guess what? If it says, your X cost has to be 10 to trigger this effect, we can pay 5 and still trigger that effect because it's doubling the value. We also have the second part of the text. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell or an activate an ability, if that spell's mana cost or ability activation cost contains X, copy that spell or ability. You may choose new targets for the copy. Whew! So any activation and any spell with X, we just get a copy. So now now we're green sunning for 2 creatures. We're blue sunning ourselves twice. We are turning all of our opponents' things into piggies twice. And we're doubling that. Like, come on. Crazy, 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 crazy. We're doubling our permanents. We're copying our other abilities. It's nuts. It's nuts. Run Unbound Flourishing. Brand new, Modern Horizons. They've given us so many tech over these last few years for this deck. This is just so crazy. They want Hydras to do so well. But moving on here, we're going to get into our combos. So we have, of course, Dramatic Reversal plus Isokon Scepter. Many of you know what this does. So with these 2 paired and 2 mana, you can infinitely untap all of your permanents. What taps for 2 mana, you may ask? Well, Zaxara, our commander, taps for 2 mana. So with Isokon Scepter, with Dramatic Reversal exiled under it for its imprint, you can keep untapping Zaxara, which means with any additional mana source, like our Birds of Paradise here, you are generating infinite mana with Isokon Scepter over and over and over again. And of course, we're also going to be running Mana Rocks in this deck. Those are all on the list too, and those add the extra immediate synergy for this. But infinite mana cycles are going to be what's going to be driving our deck here, which will bring us on to the next one. Penniman's Aura and Freed from the Real plus Zaxara. Both of these you enchant onto a creature, and then they both have for a blue you can untap enchanted creature. Meaning we can tap Zaxara for 2 blue, pay a blue, untap her. Tap her again, make 2 blue, pay 1 to untap her. Now we have 2 blue floating. Keep doing that infinitely until you have infinite blue mana, and then you can start tapping her for other colors, and then paying that infinite amount of blue you have to untap her again, giving you infinite mana of every single color. Now we get super dirty. We were getting dirty before, but now we're getting into the combos. This is the sauce. Zaxara plus 1 of these is an instant win. Hypothetically, if depending on how hard we're ramping, this deck can do this on turn 2 or 3. So what are we going to be dumping that mana into, though? Well, we have Finale of Devastation and Green Sun Zenith here. And with that, we can grab any creature on our deck, but specifically, you knew it was coming, the big boy Craterhoof Behemoth. With all of the Hydra tokens we're generating, plus all of the other Hydras that we are making, 6 or 7 big Hydras into play, plus a Craterhoof, is pretty much game over. Infinite Mana Cycle, plus those Hydras, plus this, you're looking at you can literally knock out a player or the whole board right away, depending on how you're doing this. If you're doing this super early, you might only be able to kill a player or 2, but if you're doing this later than turn 6, hypothetically, you can just kill the board. Craterhoof is only in here for that reason. Hopefully you won't have to hardcast him too much. You'll be able to use your X spells to get that additional Hydra before he hits the ground. But he is in the deck nonetheless and will hopefully help you win some games here. Little bit off theme, but it's a finisher. It's a closer, and it's going to help you win those matches where it matters. We have a little bit of a cute one next with Villainous Wealth. You can make, infinite mana and Sultai colors, and then dump it all into the rest of it into the X cost, and you literally exile the rest of your opponent's library and get to cast all of their non-land cards. And if they can't kill themselves immediately, you get to use every non-land card in one of your opponent's decks to hopefully kill the other opponents. It's kind of relying on what your other opponents are playing and if they can feasibly win in a turn 2 to see if you can win. But It's fun, it's cute, it might make someone giggle, it might make someone never want to play Magic with you again. You'll never know until you try it. I think we should try it regardless and see what happens. It's a cool card, and it's just included in there for that reason. It's kind of like a cute win condition. Um, we also get to play this win condition that I have been wanting to play in a deck forever, Simek Ascendancy. We can actually just win with this normally without any combos pretty easily. Whenever you have one or more +1/+1 counters are put on creatures you control, or on a creature you control, put that many growth counters on Simek Ascendancy. So if we're putting Hydra into play with 20 counters, we just get 20 counters on this right away, with which it then reads, at the beginning of your upkeep, if Simek Ascendancy has 20 or more growth counters on it, you win the game. With things like Doubling Season in our deck, that makes Simek Ascendancy even more broken and nuts than it normally would be, and you can use this card to win super early in the game, especially if you're ramping out and you put this out on like turn 2, cast your commander on turn 3, now we're cooking with sauce, you can realistically start winning in like a turn or two after, depending on how much you go off. I think the card's super sweet, and I would actually love to play this deck and be able to say that I've gotten a win with this card. I don't think there's going to be many other prime examples of decks that are meant to run this card and try to win with it unless you're specifically building around it, but it just slotted in here so well that I thought, of course, we had to include it. And then we have the obligation of showing you all the Draw X spell plus Lab Maniac combo with infinite mana. Draw your deck. Laboratory Maniac is the only thing you have to cast, and then you just win the game. You draw your last card, and booyah. Instead of losing the game, you have now won the game. And everybody will either be really relieved that you ended the game that quickly and didn't go through a convoluted, super lengthy combo to do it, or they'll be angry that you ended the game so quickly through this super simple combo and never want to play Magic with you again. So now you play group, know what they want to play with, and if you want to bring this degenerate sauce to the table, I encourage you fully. And we have our last final finishers here. We have all of our we're going to ping you to death spells. We have Exsanguinate, Torment of Hellfire, and Walking Ballista. They all separately do different things, but they get us to the same end goal, bringing every single one of our opponent's life totals down to 0. They each get around each other in different ways. Torment of Hailfire is his own little special beast. Instead of just straight up draining the life from people, they have to repeat the process X times, which is each player loses 3 life unless that player sacrifices a non-land permanent or discards a card. You might be wondering how that is a little bit different than Exsanguinate. It kind of gets to the same point. But like if you have to use it early game to kind of like board wipe your opponents or make them, lose a ton of life up front, it can kind of open up the door for you to get an easy trample win later on with your big creatures, or even late game if you have a ton of mana, not enough to kill a player, just quite, but that it's going to make them have to sacrifice most of their board to stay alive, and then that gives you enough footing to win like the next turn. It can be useful for that as well, whereas Exsanguinate, you're kind of just going for the kill. And then Walking Ballista, of course, we can just play as a creature or we can play it as this finisher here. Usually you're going to want to play it as a finisher. And because lots of these combos do involve artifacts and sorceries, we are in great colors for that. You're going to be able to run pretty much any tutor that you can afford. Anything from like Fabricate to Vampiric Tutor to Imperial Seal to, Diabolic Tutor. Any kind of pieces you're going to need to find everything, you're going to have access to. Worldly Tutor, Mystical Tutor, they're all there. So hopefully, with your own discretion, you'll be able to add some of those too to help you kind of combo off in whichever way you think is the most well situated for your deck. But yeah, without further ado, that was Zaxara. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hope you enjoyed the saucy content, and I hope you'll join me next time that I decide to make one of these videos. I think probably in about 2 weeks here. I would love to hear any suggestions you guys have or any decks that you'd like to see in the comments down below. If you're not already, make sure you subscribe to our channel. We'd love for you guys to be able to come back and watch some more of our cool content. I do deck tech videos like this, like I said, about once every other week. But on top of that, we have video creation coming out every single week from lots of our streamers. We also have our Twitch channel, which should be linked in our YouTube. And yeah, if you could like this video as well, if you thought it was interesting, and if, like I said, if there were any other decks that you want to see from this new set, or if you have any comments or questions or concerns about this deck, anything you'd like to see different, feel free to shoot us that comment and I will be able to get back to you and chat with you about it. But yeah, Zaxara, I'm super excited. I hope you guys are excited. I hope I was able to frame her in a degenerate way in which you will bring the sauce boss to the table and make your friends hate that I ever made this video for you guys to watch. There's not a lot of times I'm really tempted to make the decks that I make for these videos, but these new sets have gotten me really hyped, and I actually really want to build this deck. So if that's not enough of an indication about how cool I think the card is, I don't know what else will be. But yeah, without further ado, guys, that was it today. So thank you for tuning in, and we will see you next time.